Hi guys, it's Olthar here and today I'm going to show you how to paint with water mixable oils. So, what do we need to paint with oils? We need oils. This is a Danneroni product, I'm not sponsored by them, just love it. Georgian water mixable oils. This is what you need to know to find it. Water mixable oils means that they have water inside and once it dries they look like basically oils, so you don't need solvents. This is a set of 10 and I think this is really all you need to start in terms of colors. This is maybe the best color selection you can find out there in a starting set. You get cold and warm blue, same for reds and yellows. This means that you have all the primaries in warm and cold version to get a lot of variety in terms of mixing. You can find U written on a label. This means that inside there is an alternative to that pigment because the pigment can be toxic or too expensive. We got a nice green which is hard to mix, so it's good to have it. Yellow ochre, perfect for mixing skin tones, and burnt umber. As you may have noticed, we don't have black because you can mix burnt umber with French ultramarine blue to get a nice black. Another mixing option will be also with alizarin crimson and green. There are many ways to get black with oils, and of course titanium white because all the pots have a single pigment inside them, and very often pigments tend to be transparent, so they need white to cover the surface. Let me be totally honest with you. I don't know all the stuff written on a label, but the square is what you need to know to paint. It's really useful. Half square means semi-transparent. Full square means fully opaque. This will cover everything. And empty square means this is a transparent paint. So don't rely on it without mixing it with some other paints that covers. Now let's select the paints we need to apply on our miniature to make it shine. We need French ultramarine blue, burnt umber and titanium white. This is a kind of demonstration, so I want to show you the other products I have. This is 10 oil. I use it mostly to clean my brush while working and to keep the paint creamy. I'll show you also fast dry medium and why I don't like this product. So maybe it's useful for you to avoid buying it. And of course water. You can use it to create washes without the needing of solvents. You are going to need a palette. I use a piece of plexiglass. I've spread a neutral green on the back side and I use the other side to make my mixes. A spatula to mix. This is really helpful. You will understand me while trying to mix oil paints with just a brush. A natural Kolinsky brush. Since we are not using solvents, it's safe to use another pro for water mixables. I like to use an old brush to blend and a silicone brush to remove the paint in some areas. This is like an eraser basically. Now let's grab an old school kind of heavy metalish miniature and let's push up the shining effects on it. To paint with oils, we should master the palette. Oil painting happens to me half on the palette and half on the painting itself to make a better job and work in a most clear way possible. We should prepare our mixes before painting. At least I'm applying on the palette also fast dry medium and stand oil. Fast dry medium during the process will dry like super glue. I really don't like this product. And now let's start with the mixes. I'm going to start with ultramarine blue, a little bit of burnt umber. As you can see, the result will be almost black. If you add more ultramarine than burnt umber, this black will be a really dark blue instead. On the palette you won't notice, but let me show you what's up when you add a little bit of white in it. You see a really desaturated blue. Now with just paper towel you can remove paints from the palette. This is useful when you maybe do a bad mix and you want to restart with a new one. Now let's build our highlights by mixing a lighter version of French ultramarine blue. As you can see, another good property of oils is that they are really intense and saturated. I will mix more and more white inside this to create a gradient. Now we just need a paint to bridge the gradient with the dark mix. I'm going to use just French ultramarine for this. When applying oils on a surface, they won't work as acrylics. They will stay wet and one next to the other will blend like wet blending. So we need to create a nice gradient directly on the palette to control it and avoid gray mixes. But let's start applying some paint on the model, shall we? I'm just using French ultramarine blue for demonstration. As you can see, it runs smoothly on the surface. But when I add the fast drying thing, it starts to flow less smoothly, and I don't really like this. Now I want to blend what I've applied, and as you can see, in just no time we get the smoothest blend we can possibly get on a miniature. Let me show you also how to use the silicone tool. This will remove the paint that went over this little detail, cleaning it properly. I will apply this process to the rest of the model, and I think it's a nice way to add a little bit of depth to a simple model, but we can go even further. Now I'm working with the dark mix to make the shadows deeper. You can also blend along the way just with the fine tip brush, but when you want to go even smoother you can just change to the clean and beaten one. Of course, with the dark mix we paint the recesses. And clean when we make a mistake. If the paint won't go 100%, just add some water to the silicone brush and it will clean perfectly. We went down with the brightness. Now it's time to go up. Just make sure to don't mix your bright mix with the black one, or you will get muddy colors. To keep the result saturated enough, we should work following this gradient we have created on the palette. So if we want to apply a bright color next to the black, we need a French ultramarine in the middle to smooth this transition. As you can see, I apply the paint and remove the excess even on my finger to keep the result thin and don't over apply layers of paint on the model, or the surface will look rough and full of unpleasant blob of paints. Oils work in the opposite way of the acrylics, because usually we apply thinner layers upon thicker with acrylics. With oil, this is not possible. Instead, when we use oils, we should apply thick paint on a thin layer. So the first layer should be really thin. We don't want a lot of paint on the model, and progressively we will apply more and more paint and load the brush during the process. As you can see, you can have fun applying a lot of dark reflection and highlights, and then blend them later without losing too much time glazing or with an airbrush. This is the beauty of oils. The only downside is the drying time. These things takes 1 day or 2 to dry completely, and after that you have to seal it with matte varnish. So I like to use mixed media on my paint jobs. I start with acrylics and I save the oils to the very final details of my paint jobs, to increase some highlights, to smooth some areas, to give depth to the shadows. If you want an example of how to apply this method on gold non-metallic metal, I've recently made a PDF on my Patreon. You can find how to work with acrylics and oils together, along with a lot of other media like inks, for example. On my Patreon, I really like to show what I'm testing in the Discord channel, to chat with the other guys and share my experience, my thought. I really like to test new products and share my ideas or listening to theirs in a friendly environment. If you want to see more of this process, I will post an extended version of this video on my Patreon as well. And now take a look at the final result. I hope you like how it looks like and how oils work. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you for your attention and bye bye.